Good evening, everybody. You can tell by my furrowed brow and perplexed look that we are going live here, and I'm getting my talkback system worked out, and we got a fantastic show tonight. I am really excited about tonight's show. So we already got a pretty good crowd in here. Jeff is making fun of my hair. Oh my God, my hair does look ridiculous. I've got like a thing going on here. Okay, so I'm here and we have audio on Facebook. We're going to check our YouTube audio, and then we will be rolling with the actual content of the show. So folks, here's the thing I ask everybody to do at this point. Grab your device, go to your computer, open it up, whatever you are watching us on, whatever type of device, and give us a little share action if you're watching us on Facebook especially. So I'm going to see, that's how easy it is. While I was talking to you, I went to my phone, I shared this video, and I am an emotionally stunted man-child with a 4th grade education. So if I can do it, certainly you can do it. All right, here is the topic tonight. We are very excited. We're going to be rolling in just a couple of seconds with this. Roger Johnson is on with us. If that name does not mean anything to you, you are probably not a habitual autocrosser. If that name does mean something to you, it's a big deal, because Roger Johnson is probably the most prolific designer of national level autocross courses anywhere in the SCCA community. He's on with us tonight. He literally has written the book on autocross course design, gives seminars right from his Houston SCCA home base, gives seminars all over the country on the topic of proper autocross course design and event management. It is fascinating stuff. If you're an autocrosser, you're going to want to stick around and just kind of see what goes into the mindset of designing a championship level course. If you're not an autocrosser, or if you're a road racer, if you're a track person, if you're one of these people that maybe hasn't given autocross a try yet, I think this is going to be an interesting show for you as well, because you might not be aware of just how much thought and mental and design and emotional engineering goes into a properly designed autocross course. I think it's going to be a really, really fascinating subject. All right. We are just about ready to go. Before we do, though, let me tell you about a couple of folks that support this show. First off, our friends at CRC. Just got word today from our friends at CRC that they are stoked that they are coming back and going to be continuing to sponsor the show throughout the end of the year. We're really excited about that, and they're going to be sponsoring our 2017 challenge, which is coming up in Gainesville. Now that's important. I'm actually going to Gainesville tomorrow to do a little bit of a site survey and check out whether or not or how much live broadcasting we can do from the challenges here. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah, CRC, here's a can of Brake Clean. It just happened to be sitting right here on the desk. I'm not going to lie to you. It's good stuff, folks. I know you are using automotive chemicals in your shops, in your house, at the track. If you're at a major retailer reaching for automotive chemicals and you're reaching for CRC stuff, you know that you're not only going to get a fantastic product, but you are getting a product from a company that supports our hobby. And that is why that's why they're so important to us. They're great people to work with. They make great stuff. I've showed you that skanky old can of CRC window cleaner I have. It's we've had a relationship with them for years. It's fantastic. So we're really excited they're sticking around. Also, you can see right down here, autobooks-aerobooks.com. If you are a voracious reader like I am, you can go to autobooks-aerobooks.com. You can go there in person if you're in Burbank. They have a brick and mortar bookstore. It is the most wonderful place in the world. I'm so glad that bookstores still exist, and it's so cool that an analog bookstore is supporting a digital endeavor, and it's very, very exciting. So, thousands and thousands of automotive-related titles, tech stuff, fiction, nonfiction, history books, airplane stuff, amazing collection of reading material, and also a great hub of the Southern California car community. So check them out at autobooks-aerobooks.com. All right. I'm paying attention to a lot of different stuff here. I got 3 different screens going, so pardon me if my eyes are drifting away. We have some really cool presentation materials for you tonight. But right now, let us bring on Mr. Roger Johnson. We're good. Roger, are you there, brother?
I am here.
Excellent. Glad you could make. Well, you didn't make you drove home from work, but glad you could make that trip home from work tonight, and join us. So let's provide a little bit of background and reference for the folks we are presenting this information to tonight. How many national level autocross courses have you designed at this point? Have you actually kept track of that figure?
Well, it depends what you mean by national level. If you mean the solo nationals held in like Lincoln and Morrisfield, etc., I've done at least 12 in a pro solo design as well. This year I get to do another one, which will make it 13. Fortunate to come in. The previous designer had to step back, and they called me in, and I was glad to do it because I love doing this.
So I have been referring to you incorrectly when I've been talking to people and even promoting this show a little bit. I've been incorrectly referring to you as an engineer, just because I think of your place of employment, but that is not correct. You and I are sort of closer in profession than I thought. You're a graphic designer by trade. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've worked at the Boeing Company, which is an engineering company,
right,
for 40 years. So I have a lot of engineering influence, but my training is in graphic arts, and I work on proposals which deal with a lot of artwork and putting things together like that.
So how does one sort of begin to approach it? I mean, when did you realize that this was an area of? I mean, you've been an autocrosser for a long time, but when did you realize that this was an area of the sport that you wanted to sort of adopt as your contribution?
Well, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, which is where Karen Babb is. She's another Hall of Fame SCCA member who's into course design, and so she showed me the basic ropes on it, and I got into it very heavy up there in the Seattle area, and continued on it as I moved down here to Houston, Texas.
So interesting. Everybody who goes to an autocross generally at some point is gonna contribute to the event. So, did you approach the course design thing with a designer's eye, with an event organizer eye? What was your what was the motive? What drew you to want to think, my God, I can do that better, or that would be fun to bring my own sort of perspective to it?
Well, what I originally wanted to do was it's a creation thing for me. I like to create things, and to create a design that no one else has driven before and have everybody like it is my goal. And so by following a few guidelines we have and things of that manner, then you can actually make predictable course designs that are, you know how well they're going to work and all that. It started off as just, something fun to do, and it just got more serious the more I got into it.
All right, so as I mentioned before, you literally wrote the book on autocross course design. I've got a 142-page design manual here that as a guy going on my 30th year of autocrossing, it's just fascinating to read every page, and having designed a few courses myself, it's just amazing to read every page. So what we're going to do tonight is we're not going to go through the whole thing. Obviously, we don't have time. We'll give folks a link to the whole book later in the show, but we're going to go through some key points and some key design elements. So, I know we have a lot of folks on from the SCCA community, from the independent club community. If anybody has any questions for Roger, throw them down in the chat in Facebook. If you're watching us on YouTube tonight, I think the chat's over here somewhere. Throw them there. We might not get to them immediately, but we'll try and get to everybody's questions and deal with this stuff, because this is a challenge that these clubs face all the time. So let me get a couple different things up on screen here, and we will go right into the course manual. So Roger, tell us a little bit about how the design manual came about.
Well, originally, the design manual came about because I realized there was no one thing showing what to do, and there was lots of people that had lots of opinions. There were many little published documents going to the convention. You could hear someone's opinion on what to do, but there was nothing that was put together on how do I do this if I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I started stealing everybody's ideas, any presentation I could find, putting them together, and being a graphic artist by nature, then I was able to put it in a single presentation and make it so it's readable. It's also heavily illustrated because, well, I'm an artist, so I like pictures. So.
All right, so let's start going through. So we've basically kind of put our heads together and come up with a primer on the stuff in this book to cover a few topics here. So we're going to start going through based on the notes that we've both had. So we're on that fundamentals page now, page 5. These are basically just like it says, fundamentals. These are the sort of unbreakable rules of designing an autocross course. So go through this with us a little bit.
All right, so this is basically 2 pages of things that you can use as a checklist when you're starting out on a course design, okay? Things that you need to do and in the order that you need to do them. On this first page you see we make a scale map. Without a scale map, you're not designing anything. You have to know what the size is, how big your turns are going to be, how far each maneuver is going to be apart from each other. So it needs to be a scale map. Things like parking stalls, concrete square dimensions, all that can help you. Google Maps is incredibly detailed these days, and doing the right way, you can get an undistorted map and have it fairly accurate as far as scale and all that goes. So the benefits, of course, like it says here, of having the map is you know your design's going to flow. You know it's going to be within the speed paradigms, and it'll allow you to hand out maps to everybody so they can actually find their way through it. So the first thing I do is I place the start and finish lines on the map. Okay, so you have this big map. How am I going to start? How am I going to finish? Yeah, that way you make sure you can get to the finish, to the start from grid. I actually have set it up before where we didn't do that, and we just kind of threw the design down and went. And when we're starting the event, first we did our test run and realized that there was no way to get to grid from the finish line. So these are the kind of things that you want to get rid of as far as problems right away. So you place your start and finish lines first. Then you got to figure out where timing and scoring is going to be. They need to be able to see the start and the finish, and preferably all the course in between. Sometimes your site doesn't allow that if it has hills and valleys and things like that, but you want to get them the best view so that they don't send cars out into a disaster and cause lots of delays and reruns because timing didn't know that the course was down. We also want to be able to keep the timing equipment out of harm's way. I want to go ahead and go to page 6.
Gotcha. All right.
All right, page 6 talks about the placement of the corner workers. You need to make sure that they are positioned so they can actually get to the course in the right amount of time. My usual thing is like, don't have them run more than 200 feet. So it means a 400-foot circle from wherever the worker station is the area that they can actually get to and get back. Also, you want to make sure they're not crossing over a course to get to another portion, because what they'll do is they'll cross over a lane, go over and pick up that cone, and when they're running back, the car may come through that lane and hit them, and that's considered bad by our insurance people. We want to make sure that they can see all the pylons. If there's hills and things in there, it's not good to have a corner station where half the pylons are not within the view of the corner station. So you got to keep that in mind as well. The whole idea is so we don't get event delays from red flags because the corner workers can't do their job. Next thing you want to do is you want to check out conditions of the surface. And again, this goes back to the scale map, accurate map. You want to mark on there where there's holes, where there's buildings, where there's trees, where there's bad asphalt patches in the middle of a concrete place, sticky tar, drainage grates, and anything like that. You put that on the map so that you don't design your course right over them. And you want to allow for multiple cars so that we can get as many runs as possible. One of the most common things I see with beginning course designs are that they just consider what it takes to get through the course and not when they can send the second car. You want to be able to send the second car within like about 25 seconds after the first car's left. And so that means that there's no overlaps and nothing that comes too close to a section that's in that first 25 seconds. Of course, this is also dependent on your course site. If you have a small lot and you have to do multiple laps, well, you just don't have that option.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think all too often a course designer, especially a novice course designer, operates in a vacuum somewhat. They will design a course that they think is cool and they think is great, but not realizing that they are also an event management function. They also have a responsibility to the timing and scoring crew to keep their job easy and keep their job safe. They have a responsibility to the grid folks, and they have a responsibility to the site owner, to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So I think just what all this points to is understand that as a course designer, you are not operating outside the purview of the event. You are operating so that the rest of the event can go smoothly as well.
Exactly. Administration of the event is important to the people who are attending the event. If there's long delays for things because you guys don't know what's going on, you're going to have a bunch of pissed off competitors.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm ready to go on to slide 9.
Okay, we are there, brother.
All right, so this is the 10 basic concepts. And this is also a good checklist for you to go through. If you download the course design manual, it goes into great detail for each one of these items. But basically, you want to be a commercial artist, not a fine artist, meaning that you want to create a piece of art that everybody likes, not just you or people who drive your car. You want to make sure that it's creative, that take usual manners and set them up in a way, usual maneuvers, and set them up in a way that people don't normally see. No hidden agendas like, I want my Miata to drive faster than that Corvette or something like that. It helps also to be familiar with course design rules, because if you set up a design that is not legal, the safety steward will close the event down and he'll try redesigning it for you. And let me tell you, most safety stewards are not good course designers. They know how to make things safe, but they don't know how to make them fun. So you want to make the course flow, because that's what makes it fun. When the course flows, you feel like you've just set the speed, gone so fast you think you're going 90 miles an hour. That's when you get off that feeling when you get off the course, when your hands are shaking and you're just looking around and you're going, wow, that's from the course flowing. You also want to use the elements that favor horsepower and handling, because the way our classes are set up, just because you have a horsepower car doesn't mean all the cars in your class are horsepower oriented, or you have a handling car doesn't mean that all cars. Well, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right, so then you also want to use your pointers correctly and sparingly. One of the things for the Solo Nationals this year, they wanted us to use as few cones as possible. So that means you don't have a lot of extra peripheral cones around if you don't need them. Sometimes for an effect you need it, but it's really easy to put too many cones on a course and get the dreaded sea of cones out there. When possible, you want to line the course. We generally use flour to do that. A lining machine, we've actually done it in the past where we had a big ass cone and we sat on the tailgate of a truck, filled the cone up with flour, and then just drove the truck around and had it come out the nose of the cone with the hole.
That was how I learned to do it, man. That's yeah. That was old school. That was the original lining machine right there.
It does work. It doesn't work as good as a line machine,
No.
but it does work. You want to make sure that you set your gates up that they don't cause confusion. You'll find when you have a really cool maneuver that you've set up, and then it goes to the next maneuver, somehow the transition from the first maneuver to the next maneuver becomes totally confusing, and it's because of the way that they're relayed to each other, and you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And finally, you want to walk or drive your course with the intent of improvement. I see a lot of folks that they set up the course and go, there, that's it. We can't drive it because we're competing. Well, that's nice, except now you have no idea if the course really works the way you intended it to work. So you need to have somebody drive it, whether it's your safety steward or the event chair, somebody with a car that's actually set up to make sure it does what you expect it to. That way you can find out where there's places that the car spins where you didn't expect it to, where it's not fun because the maneuvers are too tight, or it's too fast because the maneuvers are too loose, all those kinds of things. What we've done in the past is we've actually had, like, if you're the event chair, you don't get points for this event like you normally do. You get a set amount of points. Well, that means you can drive it as much as you want. Okay, and so the benefit for being the event chair is that you get to drive the course a bunch, you get a set amount of points, and then we can test the course and make sure that it actually does what we want.
That's cool. All right, so before we move on here, we have a few people on the line from the Rallycross community, and that is for those of you that aren't familiar with Rallycross, the easy way to describe it is autocross on dirt. So they're wondering, have you ever taken your skills to the dirt, or is that something that's sort of still on your bucket list, or do you want nothing at all to do with that and you're just happy on pavement and concrete?
Well, no, I'm not opposed to it at all. As a matter of fact, when Rallycross first started off, they contacted me, and I put together a couple designs and set up one down there at Grand Sport Speedway in the Houston area, down in Hitchcock, I think. At any rate, so it's totally different doing a Rallycross, though, because of the dirt. I mean, when you put a cone there, it doesn't necessarily stay there because the course changes as the day goes on, kind of thing. But a lot of the same concepts here do apply. But I wouldn't say it's like, oh yeah, this is the answer for all Rallycross. I'd love to get into more Rallycross designs, but they're kind of hard to find, actually.
Yeah, you're dealing with a much more fluid medium. All right, so when we first talked about this, I had come up with some general topics that I wanted to deal with, and two of them were best practices and worst practices. And I'd like to deal with the worst practices first, because I am of the belief, and after many decades of doing this and being involved in event organization, it's people are going to remember a bad event far longer than they're going to remember a good event. Not that we don't all enjoy these events, but it's way easier to piss people off than it is to make them happy. So I think avoiding worst practices is almost more important than undergoing best practices. So I want to talk about some of these worst practices things here, and just these things that probably should be on the ban list. So let's head to page 7, okay, and talk about some of our worst practices. And I love the heading: how to keep your solo peers from killing you.
Yes, and that's it too. You'll find when you set up a good course that people will come seek you out and tell you what a wonderful course it was, and when you don't set up a really good one, they'll come seek you out as well, and you don't want them to at that point. So how to keep them from doing that? You don't want them to get lost or make them hit cones. You want them to be able to successfully drive the course, even if they're a rookie. Because even if you're new, you can set up a course that a new person can get through, that an experienced guy like me can go through and still have a challenge. It doesn't mean don't make it challenging. It means explain where you're going. You don't want to have too many pylons because that creates the sea of pylons. I don't know about you. Sometimes I've walked out, looked out at a course, and go, "Oh my God, I don't even know where to start."
Yeah.
Look out! All you see is orange, as far as you can see. So you want to avoid that if possible. You do not want to space your pylons the same or similar distance as gate width. That's because then, is that a gap for a gate or is that a wall? So either the walls need to be much denser or there's the gates need to be farther apart. Generally, we think about 2.5 to 3 times the gate width. So if it's a 20-foot gate, the next gate shouldn't be within 60 feet of that one. You want to make sure they place the next gate in their line of sight. Do not place it out of their line of sight. So that means that if you are looking ahead and in your peripheral vision you cannot see where you're going next, then as a course designer you failed. If you're expecting them to turn their head to the right to see your gate, I guarantee they'll turn their head to the left. And away they go. So when possible, always line the course. The lining of the course is not a requirement. It doesn't mean anything if you cross the lines. But for those that are new to the course, new to this sport, it really helps them get through. Because this whole autocross thing is basically a 5-word language. You know, this cone formation means this cone formation means this cone formation means this, etc. But when it's coming up and you have to know in a second, boom, boom, boom. Oh wait, what did that mean? Oh, now you're 100 feet past it, right? So that's why lining the course helps, because it gives them an idea where to go, even if they're not real familiar with the language of the cones. And the last one is one that I see a lot. They put a cone and I hear them go, "Boy, that one is gonna get creamed today." and go ahead.
Oh no, the old Key West box. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that used to be a thing. It was just this goofy thing that happened down here, and yeah, but yeah, that's you certainly as a designer don't want to set traps for people.
And that doesn't mean you won't have cones that get hit a lot. I mean, if the sole purpose of the cone is to get hit by those that, as like I said, that one will get creamed, and that's the wrong thing. They're often called Kenny cones. If you're familiar with South Park, yeah. Kenny always dies. Well, that's why they call it a Kenny cone. So let's go ahead and go to page 16.
Alrighty, we're there.
Oh yeah, I gotta go to page 16. All right. So you want to use creativity, and what is creativity? That's where you have something that they haven't seen before, that with the right amount of skill and aggression they can go through and get rewarded for it. You want to make sure that it's challenging but not painful. You can do things like use your chalk lines in a variety of ways to make it more interesting. Another thing is if you have, I could design a whole course made of just slaloms, and that would have sweepers in it. It would have hard corner turns, but is that really a good thing to do, right? So one of the things you want to do is you want to be creative, you want to be innovative, but you want to avoid the bizarre. Now, this thing on the right that looks like a snowman was actually a course design when I first moved down to Houston that someone had brought together. The idea is you came in from the lower right, went around the circle, went up to the next circle, went around that circle, came back around that circle, came back around the bottom circle, and exited out on the upper left there. The course was very unique. It was a new concept, but it was definitely bizarre. It was so bizarre that about half the people who paid just got up and left. So when you come up with a new idea, and I want you to come up with new ideas. I love it when new course designers show me stuff, because it's stuff I never thought of doing that. But you got to make sure it's not, I never want to do that. That's different. All right, so let's go to page 25.
All right, yeah, and actually this is, I love the terminology here. And a little surprise cameo by our friend Keith from Flying Miata on this page. But I love the idea of no hidden agendas. You know, a course designer should not be somebody who is really coming into it with an agenda other than a customer service agenda and an agenda to challenge the competitors. You know, I love that this is something that you're specifically addressing here.
Yes, and it's not a really complicated concept. I mean, as long as you're putting sweepers, transients, acceleration, and hard braking in equal amounts throughout your entire design, it will not be a course that favors one particular car. An example, for example, on the picture here we have Camaro and a Miata. Camaros may have like 600 horsepower. Miatas, I don't know what, but it's not a lot compared to the Camaro. So what Miatas do well is they maintain their speed and they're narrow, and so they do transients and things like that really well. What the Camaro does well is go into a hard corner, brake hard, turn, and then accelerate out. That's why you need to have a variety of things. That's one thing that most people don't realize, is that a hard braking exercise is a horsepower exercise, which at first thought doesn't seem to make sense. But if every car on there, including the Miata, has to brake really hard and go down to 20 miles an hour, who's going to have the advantage when they accelerate out? It's the car with horsepower. So let's go ahead and go to page 36.
Maneuvers to avoid. Yeah, I've seen a few of these.
All right, so off camber turns are bad, especially right turns, because cars roll over and that's a bad thing. Decreasing radius right turns, we don't want that. And 1-2 hard corrections following a fast section. A lot of times what people think is that, oh gee, we need to slow the car down because we're going 65 miles per hour here. So they put in a short 45-foot slalom to slow them down. What you really need to do is slow them down before they get fast. Otherwise, they could come into that and the car will roll, because you're bringing with such speed that it upsets the car and makes it go over. So another thing I want you to avoid are what the NFMs, the no fun maneuvers. It's any maneuver that requires a first gear downshift. Now, ironically, a couple years here at Nationals, they've told us they want a first gear downshift 1 point course. I didn't get told that this year, so we don't have that.
Oh, thank you.
But I particularly don't think there's any reason to shift down to first gear. That doesn't mean that you might not get really close, but 360-degree pivot turns where you go round and round like that, the spin cone, they're just not fun. Narrow, walled-in, sharp turns, that's where you have basically an L-shaped tunnel you're going through, and it's really tight, so cars that are wide have an extreme disadvantage to the cars that are narrow. Gates or slaloms with severe offsets. That's what's up here in the upper hand right-hand corner. A 45-foot slalom that's offset at all is a horrible thing. I don't generally offset the slaloms until I at least get to 65 feet apart.
And when we talk about an offset slalom, we're talking about a slalom that is basically more than cones in a line. Cones offset to the negative side, where you have to travel additional distance around each subsequent cone, basically.
Yeah, a traditional slalom is like 5 cones in a row. Well, they don't have to be in a row. So you can offset them to the hard or to the easy. Setting them off the hard way, you need to have farther distance between the cones. So if you have a small lot, I would never have an offset slalom. In fact, unless it was offset to the good, where you could ride a bicycle straight through it, that kind of thing. Another thing that you see a lot of people do is the 90-degree walled-in turns right before the finish lights. Now, the idea is they don't want to go too fast, they don't want to spin and hit the timing gear and all that. So I submit to you that it's safer to have the car go in a straight line towards the finish. The problem with this Z before the finish is you're going to piss everybody off, for one, because they're not going to be able to floor it. Now, one of the things that everybody does is they think that in the last 100 feet, if they floor it, they're going to solve all the problems they have had previously to that point. And so everybody does it. I mean, I've been doing this since 1977. I still do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. So no matter what your finish looks like, just assume that everyone is going through there full throttle, basically.
Correct. So you might as well set it up so they can do it safely.
Yeah.
In order to do that, I allow 100 feet before the light, after the turn. Now the trick is the turn really over at the 100 feet? I see a lot of course designs where the turn, because of the cone placement, actually doesn't end till they're right at the lights. Just because you designed it to end 100 feet beforehand, if they can take it the other way and keep their foot on the throttle, they will. And then you have problems with the car spinning into the lights, breaking equipment, and delaying the event. The last thing that is really the one that really pisses me off the most is whenever you hit the brakes right before the lights because you have to. I mean, if you want to, that's one thing, but I don't know anybody that wants to hit the brakes before the lights. So let's go ahead and go to page 91.
Okay, yeah, safe finish. And it's funny you mentioned all this because the last event that I ran had a Z finish. And I won't mention where it was or who did it, and there was great discussion over it during the course walks. And I'll also say that they got away with it. It was actually a really fun, fairly well-designed finish, but I think everybody sort of knew as they were doing it that, okay, this might not be the, yeah, and a couple people on Facebook know what I'm talking about, but yeah, we absolutely got away with it, but we were all sort of standing around during the course walk going, this could be interesting at some point, but it worked because it happened to, not because it was designed that way, basically. And occasionally you will get lucky, but yeah, it's certainly something you should probably avoid. So okay, so we're on the safe finish checklist here, Roger.
Right, and the reason this is here is because where a lot of the incidents happen is because everybody always floors it at the finish, no matter what the design is. And so how can you make it a safe finish? Well, you need to make sure that there's enough course area so that you can stop easily. If you're flooring it at the finish, you need to figure out how fast the car is going to be going. If he's going 45 at the finish, you don't need a lot of stopping time, probably 150, 170 feet, something like that. If they're going at the maximum, 68 miles an hour, you're going to need 200 plus feet. And then beyond that, you need to have even more room in case their brakes fail. So you need to design it so that they can floor it the last 100 feet and do it safely, no matter what the situation. So you need to make sure your slowing turn before the 100 feet is actually a slowing turn, and that even if it's driven incorrectly. When we set up courses and we test drive them, if you're experienced at all, your tendency is to take the correct line, drive through the course, and oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, that's perfectly safe, that's wonderful. But then what we always encourage the course designers to do when they're doing their test drive, the next one after that is drive cone to cone. And you'll be amazed where you end up when you're driving not on the line.
Oh wow.
It's still within the guidelines, it's still perfectly legal, but if you're just driving cone to cone because you're not looking any farther ahead than the end of your hood, oh my God, sometimes the places you end up. So you need to consider what lies beyond the finish. Is your finish pointing right at grid? Well, that may not be a good thing, because if it is, then you're going to need to put a much longer distance, because again, what happens if the brakes fail? You don't want them flying into grid. Or like one of my course designs in '95 at Solo Nationals, it was a fast finish on a sweeper that didn't point at grid, but when the cars spun out of the sweeper, they spun into grid because it was just too close. Also, I hear this a lot too. When they look at it and they see a problem, they go, well, no one's going to be dumb enough to do that. The answer is, yes, they are.
Yeah, it's not the smart people you have to worry about, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yes, so do not depend on common sense to prevent an incident. So the words of wisdom thing is an important little section here, because if course length has to be given up to provide enough run out after the lights, do it, because you cannot afford to have an incident at your event. You only have to lose about 50 to 70 feet generally in those cases, and no one's going to really notice that. Make sure that the slowing turn actually slows people down. And finally, it's better to have people grumble about slower speeds at your event than it is to have an incident, because if you have an incident, you may not be holding events again after that. Unless you got anything else, let's go to page 118.
118, maneuvers to avoid.
Okay, this is more of don't do these. You don't want an extremely slow maneuver. I hear people saying, I'm making an extremely technical course. Technical and slow are not the same thing. Everybody here is coming out to quote unquote race their cars. That doesn't mean putting it in first gear and putting around something. This is progressed beyond that. People actually want to accelerate. They want to feel the G-forces. They want to actually be driving their car hard. Again, no 360-degree pivot turns or 270, where you're not quite going in the same direction when you exit it, but just no driving around a single cone. Again, no narrow, walled-in sharp turns with no choice of line. Some of this is redundant to the slalom and severe offsets, and hitting the brakes just before the lights. So let's go to page 138 now.
Gotcha.
Okay, so one of the things that I hear a lot of course designers talk about is they want to push the speed paradigms. They want to push the envelope. You, as a course designer, are part of the event administration. You need to be thinking about the entire event, not just about your design. So you don't want to focus on pushing the envelope with regard to speed. Focus instead on creating a course that feels like you've pushed the envelope. If you've done it right, you've put in the flow, this course will feel like it. I mean, when you're driving through some slaloms at 55 miles an hour and accelerating through to the end, well, you're going to feel like you're just going fast. One of the things I didn't put in here earlier is that I always do increasing slaloms. And the part of the reason for that is it gives everybody a chance to accelerate through it, and those that aren't good drivers don't get caught by getting behind. So finally, don't put a tightening transient element near the end of a fast stretch because we don't want anybody to roll over. So that's basically the end of my worst practice.
Okay, so we're going to move on to best practices here, but before we do that, I'm going to take a quick break and talk about some of the folks that support this show and the magazine from whence this show originates. Folks, if you are enjoying the content tonight on JRM Live presented by CRC Industries, you can subscribe to our print magazine. You can go to grassrootsmotorsports.com/live deal. If you are a viewer of this show, if you're a fan of this show, grassrootsmotorsports.com/live deal. And just by going to that URL, you get a 15% discount off a new or renewal subscription to our magazine. You know, if you're an autocrosser, if you're a track person, if you're a road racer, if you're just somebody that likes getting their hands dirty and making their sports car or car you drive like a sports car perform, we are the magazine for you, and we'd appreciate your patronage. Also, check out our friends at CRC. So before the show, one of the things that I've loved about having CRC being part of this show is I have discovered a whole bunch of new products. If you watched our show a few weeks ago, it's on YouTube. We went through a bunch of the CRC product catalog, and there was stuff I never, they've been advertisers in the magazine for years. There's stuff they make that I never knew about, and one of it is this VisiClear display cleaner, and you can tell that I like it because I've already lost the cap. I cleaned all the displays for all of these various computers that I have set up in front of me with this stuff before the show. It's fantastic. If you've got a bunch of LED screens, LED TVs, LCD TVs, you know how hard it is to clean the screens. This stuff is amazing. No streaks, no drips, no water spots, no nothing. It's easy on the plastic. It's really cool. I had no idea they made this until I found a can somewhere. Wow, I know those guys. Also, Autobooks.aerobooks.com, Autobooks-aerobooks.com. If you are a reader of books, and I very much hope that you are, because although, look, this is new media. This is a thing that didn't exist 15 years ago, but books have been here for thousands of years, and hopefully they will continue to be here for thousands of years. And there are things you can only learn from a book. There are things that you can only be inspired to think from a book. In our house, my wife and I don't have like one area for books. We have these little book areas sort of all over the house, because sometimes you just see a book and you want to stop and feel something in your hands and read words and be inspired. So we love that a bookstore is supporting this show. So go to autobooks-aerobooks.com, check out their amazing library of automotive titles, aircraft titles, motorcycle titles, boat stuff, everything from tech to history to fiction. It's fantastic. Also, if you check out autobooks-aerobooks.com, if you're anywhere in Southern California, they have a massive calendar of Southern California automotive events there on their website. So it is not just a brick and mortar bookstore and an online seller of automotive books. It is a sort of a hub for the Southern California automotive community. It's fairly exciting. And if you want to check out Roger's book, we're going to give you a link to the Houston SCCA course design page. A slightly older version of the book than we're using for this presentation. Most of the info is the same. Couple of very small differences. Slightly older version of that book is on the bottom of that page. If you scroll down, there's also years and years of Houston SCCA courses, and so you can see a lot of Roger's old designs and a lot of fantastic information there. The new version of this book, the 2017 version that we're using tonight, is going to be on that page sometime very soon, as soon as they can get the webmaster for the Houston SCCA Club to get it posted up there. So so we'll throw a link to that. Looks like David looks like we just did that. So if I see a lot of folks here that are event organizers, that are course designers themselves, so this is a fantastic resource. And actually, if you are somebody in the SCCA community, somebody in the independent club community, and you have a question tonight, throw it down in the chat, throw it over on the YouTube chat if you're watching us on YouTube, and we will get to it. All right, enough of that. Roger, did you go pee? Did you go get a drink? Take a break there? Was that good?
I got up and danced around the room, and life is good.
All right, man. Okay, so let's get back to it here. Let me.
What I'd like to do is go to page 12. Let's skip page 9 again because we've already seen that.
Okay, sounds good. Hang on for 1 second.
And are we needing to finish this up in 12 minutes?
Say what?
Are we needing to finish this up in 12 minutes?
No, we got as much time as you got. We got a bunch of folks on, and they're having a good time. So don't feel like you need, unless you got to go watch Game of Thrones or something. You can hang around and we can finish this up in however long it takes.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So what this is a course map that someone submitted. It was hand drawn on a scale map that I provided. You'll see those gray circles with the black dots. Those are light poles with the 25-foot safety margin around them, and all the parking stalls in that parking lot. We also indicate where the high and low sections are. You probably can't see that, but it's at the bottom of the map. What we do in the Houston region, I recommend that all regions do, if at all possible. Once a design is submitted on the scale map, you put it before a committee of your solo peers. We have the solo committee in the Houston region made up of about 12 people that meet once a month. For a course to get put out on the course, it needs to be brought before them, and they review it. Now, what's good about this is they look at it and make comments. So the black lines are what the design was, and the red pen marks are what the comments were. So like you could see in the upper left hand corner, they were wondering if it was too close to that pole. The slalom here coming out of that corner was a little severe, and they thought that this U-turn needed to be moved away from grid and moved it more to the left. Widen the area that comes down following that turn. or it's as good at the bottom. That's where a crest of the hill is, and you want to never go straight over a crest of a hill. You want to take it at an angle, and that was taking it at an angle. Allowing more off-camber room. This corner here, after that, it was narrow, but it was in an off-camber section, so your cars are going to drift out. You need to pay attention to that and make it so that cars can drift out without destroying the course. Then we asked them to lessen the offset and change the direction of the finish. Now, what the value of this is, you as a course designer can go back and take a look at these things, and you get to decide how to fix it. If you were just to show up with this map on the day of the event, the same issues probably would have been realized, and your safety steward would have been helping you. And again, the safety steward is there to make it safe, not to make it fun. So this is your opportunity to address these things prior to the event and make it as fun as possible. So let's go to page 19.
All right, the basics of the 5-cone slalom, and actually this has become one of my favorite parts about autocrossing, and one of the things that I've enjoyed as my skills have improved, as my experience has improved, is finding these basic maneuvers among more complex designs, and I think that's one of the really, not just from a design perspective, but from a driving perspective, I think it really helps to be able to spot these rudimentary maneuvers, whether or not they're disguised by more complex visuals or not. So, this is a fascinating discussion here on basic slaloms.
All right, so on this one here in the orange box up there, you'll see it's a basic 240-foot 5-cone slalom. You can see from the pathway indicated there how you would take it. All right, so now the next one below it is the same exact maneuver. You can see the black cones are indicated in each one of these diagrams, showing the same 5-cone slalom. We just added cones to the outside and drew white lines around it. Somehow with these angular white lines around it, this suddenly looks harder than it did before. Well, it's still just a 5-cone slalom. The next one underneath of it is actually one of my favorite tricks, is that you do the same thing, but you make it wider as you go through. As you make it wider, it looks like it gets faster and faster because there's suddenly more course area. It's not faster. It's still the same 5-foot slalom, or 5-cone slalom. And then D down at the bottom looks like it's just a 2-cone slalom. Well, it's not. Even though it's got those lines, it's still just a 5-cone slalom. Let's go ahead and go to page 20.
All right.
All right, so this is also a 5-cone slalom in 240 feet. All right, and you can see it's 60 foot between cones. Well, you don't have to make them equal distant. Now, looking at version B, you start off with a 45-foot placement, 55, 65, 75. It's still 240 feet long, but you're allowed to accelerate through the slalom. You can make it wider, or the cones get offset as you go through. Something to consider, if you look at the end of that slalom, there's like 3 or 4 cones set there. The problem with that can be is if you hit 1 cone, you hit 4 cones. And that's an administrative issue, so you have to decide if it's better just to offset the cone and put a pointer on it, or if you want to do the 4 cones things for the visual effect. Version C is punish reward. And what that means is that you offset 2 of the cones to the hard side of the center line, and then put the last 2 cones back on the center line. In essence, what that does is the entry into it is difficult. Even though they're all 60 foot apart, it's harder to enter into it because the first 2 cones are offset to the bad. And then if you had a bicycle, you could ride through the next through in a straight line, so it eases up. And so if you set up for the first 2 cones, you can fly through the rest of it. And if you're smart enough to see that, then that's how you will be faster. People who are new just drive it like it's all in a line, and that's not the fast way to drive that.
Yeah, and depending on what leads into it or what leads out of it, the rhythm of the whole section could be completely different as well. So that's it's neat seeing those sort of mixed distance, mixed offset slaloms, because they really take a lot of their flavor from what comes before or what comes after. So we're
Yes,
moving on.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Moving on to 26. It looks like.
Okay. 26. Now, one of the things that I also find interesting is that how many course designers have never read the rules. You need to actually, although it's not real stimulating reading, it's good to read that whole section 2 of your rule book. Fortunately, it's not that long, but you have to know the rules so that you don't get all this help at the event from the safety stewards to make it compliant. That's just all there is to that. You learn it, failure. So let's go ahead and go to page 68.
Okay, this is the old Topeka North course back when the Nationals was at the old Topeka Air Park. This was our North course. This was typically a little more challenging, I think, to design a course on than the South course was, just because of the drainage areas and the sort of unusual shape of the patch of concrete there.
Yes, at Forbes Field they had trouble with the heaving of the concrete. So see where the concrete squares are at a 45 degree or thereabout. It's actually not 45, it's like a 43 degree angle or something like that. Right along that seam going north to south there, it was you never knew what the concrete was going to look like. So it was a challenge to design through there. We had known areas where there were going to be problems. The area at the top there is a surface problem area. We used to call that Niagara Falls because it was such a big, steep cement heave area. And then the area down on the bottom that's in gray is just where a bunch of broken concrete was. Now you'll see other dots and marks in here. We marked out where the spectator area was. We mark out where the grid is going to be. That's known ahead of time. We mark where the drainage grates are. Now keep in mind, water flows downhill, so drainage grates are at the bottom. So that's a bottom of a hill right along each of those drainage grates. The other black squares there were fuel islands. They were nothing that would be a big deal if we drove over them, except for the fact that they were raised a little bit and it would unsettle the car. So we generally wanted to stay away from those. The round circles were manholes. You don't want to drive over a manhole because, well, it's just not good traction and who knows what it's going to do to your car. So this was setting up the scale map. You want to have a good scale map, and this one was well thought out. That's fortunate for us. All the grids were 25-foot squares, which made things easier. So let's go ahead and go to the next page.
Page 70. Yep, we 70. Got the.
Yes. Okay, so what you do is you figure out where your start is, where your finish is, and then draw a general pathway through the obstacles. All right, so this is what I had done. That was my general pathway, and after doing several of these, I decided that was probably going to make the best use of the lot. And so you can see that it clearly is accessible from the grid, both at the start and the finish. This is the one I told you about where they were spinning into the grid, though. And you can see that big spinning turn right there at a high speed, and they just spun right into grid.
So that's interesting. This was designed back at a time when there were a lot more R compound tires in use in autocross. The entire what was called at that point the stock class was all still using R compound tires. Did you notice anything from a course designer perspective about how your courses changed when street tires became more prevalent?
Actually, no, because the street tires have now improved to the point to what the race tires were back then. So it's still the same basic guidelines. Cars are more capable now than they were back then, and so the total speed is about the same as when we were on race tires.
Okay.
So let's go to page 72.
Okay, so here's your final worked out course based on that sketch.
Okay, you can see the approximate pathway that I put in there, and you can see how the course then ended up. the the design worked out well. It was one of the most popular course designs I've ever done. Our part that was surprising to me is that from the start to the first turn was flat out for almost everybody, and even though they had that pinching cone at the turn there, but it was turned out to be a good Yahoo course, but still within the speed paradigms. So it gives you an idea how you can plot a design on top of your pathway. And you can see it doesn't follow the pathway exactly. It's just the pathway is a general approach, and then you tweak it to whatever makes sense.
And I see a few early examples of some signature Roger Johnson walled slaloms in there, and it's like you were learning your and getting more comfortable with your design language on this one. It's fun to have enough experience on enough of these different courses where I can drive a course now and say, okay, this is one of Roger's courses, and I always like these. So all right, heading on to 98.
Okay. 98 is about placing your worker stations. Now, remember earlier I said an average worker can run about 200 feet in any one direction to go get a cone. So that's how we determine where the worker stations will be. You'll see in worker station 1 is placed at the first turnaround, and it's in red. The gray area is what we call a satellite worker position. The reason why that one is there is because the chances of anybody hitting a cone there are not great. Maybe the apex cone right at the start. All the rest of it, it's pretty wide open. So we need a corner worker there in case somebody does something we don't expect. But it's well within the capability of corners 1 to do it. So we'll put like 1 person, 2 people down at the satellite, and 4 people at the main worker station. You can see corner 2, there's some overlap to corner 1, but we'll define what corner 1 watches or not by the dotted lines that we show around there. Corner 3, corner 4, and corner 5. Corner 4 and corner 5 has some offset, but the slalom would be best handled by the folks at the finish, since they're doing the slalom, and in theory they were just finishing and being done until we had our problem with spinning people right at that. That's before I came up with the 100-foot floor to the finish. As you can see, the turn really finishes right at the lights. If you were to come around and drive through section 5, when you're hitting the finish, you're straightening out right at the lights. What I needed to do is pinch that turn off a little more and give it 100 feet where they can actually go accelerate towards it, and then it would have been fine.
Yeah. Cool. So we've talked quite a bit about ideal situations and putting these interesting maneuvers on these great blank sheets of paper. But one of the more common questions we got as we were promoting this show coming up was how to deal with crappy sites, because there are a lot of regions out there right now dealing with crappy sites. So I'm going to get those pages queued up, but actually before I do that, let me just kind of ask you a general question. As a designer, what's your philosophy on, especially at sort of a championship level, what's your philosophy on what a proper autocross course should test? I mean, should there be a memory aspect to it? Should there be a purely a car control aspect to it? Should there be a line choice aspect to it? How many sort of different skills and disciplines are you trying to work into one of your designs?
So a lot of that, answering that, is dependent on the site. If it's like we have at Lincoln, where it's a 1,200 by 700 foot pad, then what I'm trying to do is provide a course that's fun for everybody, that has a variety of lines that you can choose by making the sections wide and all that stuff. That doesn't mean the maneuvers aren't necessarily far apart, but there's lots of room to take the wrong line. Plenty of room to hang yourself, as it were. And it's when you're at a smaller lot, sometimes you don't have that option, just because you've got to make it all fit and get within. So my goal is to make it fun for everybody, and that means the guys in the big ass Camaros, the guys in the Miatas, the guys in the mod cars, everybody. It needs to be fun for everybody, and all while making it safe for everybody to run.
Yeah, but obviously not everybody has Lincoln, Nebraska to deal with, or even some of the great sites we used to have in Florida, like MacDill Air Force Base, for example. After 9/11 happened, we lost that site. So in Central Florida right now, we still have a very active program, but we don't have the best lot. So we have a kind of a section here. We're going to start with page 105 on dealing with crappy lots, or how to use what you got to your best advantage.
So what we have here on 105 is an orange area and a football field that's put the Cowboys and the Texans on, because I'm from Texas, to give you an idea of the scale. So the football field is scaled to the size. The orange area is the East course at Solo Nationals. So a semi-perfect situation where you have 1200 by 700. This white area you see here was a lot that was found in Santiago, Chile. I've been working with Eliseo Salazar down there with his solo program. And as you can see, it's much smaller and odd shaped. So let's go ahead and go to the 106. So you can see here, it was about 285 feet by 600 feet in triangular shapes. And we wanted to be able to put as many cars on as we could. There's an area for grid. Now, not living in Chile, he gave me the address. I looked it up on Google Maps and came up with this design where it would allow them to come in. They take a loop-de-loop lap, and then the second lap they continue through and finish and come up and back down in the grid. One of the problems with Google Maps is it's hard to tell elevations. So what I had done is, on that design, as you exited, you drove along, and then you drove down a set of stairs to get back to
That certainly ups the challenge factor a little bit.
Yeah, but fortunately I had Eliseo go out there and look at the site to make sure it all worked, and that's when he told me of the stairs. And we redesigned the course within that area there, and it worked out just fine. Let's go ahead and go to page 108. Well, actually, let's go. You have access to page 107, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so go ahead and show 107. This is the course that we redesigned. Now notice we're starting up here at this other gate where the start is. Interestingly enough, Eliseo Salazar, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's the only Chilean Formula One driver ever. So he's a national hero. And we're at this stadium, and this gate is welded shut.
Oh, wow.
And I go, oh, well, it showed that it was a gate, so I'm not sure what we're going to do now. He goes, no problem. Hold on. He gets on the cell, calls the guy. And within a half hour, someone's down there sawing through the welds and opens the gate up, cut all the wires that were going across it and everything. For Eliseo, we do this.
But how awesome is that? That the Chilean national Formula One hero is in charge of their autocross program now, and bringing this sort of egalitarian sport to the people. That's very cool.
So you can see we ended up starting here and then doing an increasing slalom to a 180, up through another 180, and back down and finished. The course was shorter than previous because, well, we were just limited to the site and where we could access it and not access it. So let's go ahead and go to the next one, which is
108. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the lumber yard versus Nationals East Course area. You can see it's much smaller. The white area, and it had some 3 access points and a small rectangular area. So if we go to the next page, let's go to 109.
Okay, 1 second.
I'm winging it on you here.
That's fine. My fingers are going as fast as I can. Okay, 109. Here we go. Oh boy,
All right.
this looks like fun.
This is the design they gave me, and they said, this is what we've been running, but everybody keeps getting lost, and it's really confusing.
I'm
What can
lost, and I'm not even in a car.
so they basically were starting and stopping in the same place, and then you had to keep making choices. You were asking about memory. The goal is to not have memory be a part of the drive. You should be able to look and see, but courses sometimes require memory to get the maximum amount of laps on the smaller lots. So on a smaller lot, it's more likely you will be using memory than not. However, I always try to make it so they're not. So this is about 300 by 600 and lots of light poles. That's what those gray things with the black dot in the center, each one of those is a light pole, and that's the 25-foot minimum distance. So let's go ahead and go to page 110.
Alrighty, this looks a little easier to follow.
Okay, so this is the one that I came up with, and notice that the start is not on the track, it's out back earlier. So they stage over there, they trip the lights, and then they can take as many laps around this as they want. They can say that it's a 3-lap, a 1-lap, or a 2-lap, and then when they finish, that's where the lights are. So that's the good thing about doing it this way. So if they only have 25 cars, there's no reason not to make it a 4-lap thing. What we've done in the past for up in Seattle when we had this event called the Enduro, where you take all your runs, we had a big cube with 4, 3, 2, and 1 on it. We had someone standing right down there where it says start, and then you just flip the cube. You got 4 runs, you got 3 runs, you got 2 runs, you got 1. Then we just flag them off and they go to the finish. But as you can see, this uses all the course, and it's much easier to see where you're going. Plus, you don't have to wait for the car to clear the area before you start the next one. As soon as he crosses that finish light, there's no reason you can't send the next car. So let's go ahead and go to 113. No, wait a minute, no. 111.
Okay.
I gotta look at a camera.
Yep, we're there, 111.
All right.
Oh, this looks like a pain in the butt.
Why, yes, it was. All right. Having technical difficulties here. There we go. All right. So this was my Frozen Butte versus the Solo National East Course area. This was up in Alaska, and this was a drag strip parking lot. And you can see it's not real big, and it's really odd shaped. So let's go ahead and go to page 112.
Okay, that's a fairly creative solution there.
All right, so this is the course we came up with. You can see there's buildings and fences and gravel strips and all sorts of things to look out for. It's approximately 600 feet wide, and the widest section's 150 feet. The narrowest is 75. So we started in the upper right, went through and crossed over again, pulled a UE, came back, and then crossed over. So this one had a very short overlap. Now, my preference would have been not to send the second car until they crossed over right in front of where the one car is staged. They chose to do it as they were sure he was going up to the upper portion. So as they just exited the 150-foot area. You can do that, but there's always a risk that someone's going to take a wrong turn somewhere, and my recommendation would not to be to do that.
And that does take some fairly sharp event management too. Your starter, yes, and your course workers really have to be on their toes, knowing that they've got a situation that those two cars are gonna. There is a theoretical crossing point on that course.
Right, and the complaint they had about this course is it was just slalom down, slalom back. Well, that's not what this is. You can see you start off, you go through a slalom, but then you have big sweeping turn around the 150-foot area, sweeping turns, and another sweeping turn up by where it says workstation 3, and then another huge sweeping turn into the 75-foot to the finish. So that gave them a lot more than just slalom down and slalom back. All right, let's go to page 113.
All right, the Coda lot.
All right, so Coda has several parking lots. This is one that's a little more challenging. It's inside the race course though, so it's kind of cool. So while you're in there competing, you can watch all the cars running around the Dakota Formula One track. So that's kind of neat. Going to the next page, 114.
All right, that's actually a fairly good sized site too.
Yes, but it's got fences all the way around it, and unfortunately for us, in the top third there, I didn't have it on here. They have a great big sealed asphalt skid pad in a circle.
Oh wow!
Which makes it slippery. So at any rate, so we built a grid in the lower or the upper left corner there, and we're able to slow them down, do a sweeping turn, some offsets, another sweeping turn, come back to sweep and finish. Or we could have made it so instead of that wall there, they could have taken another lap and then gone through. Now the problem with that would have been there's almost no overlap, so that would have been had to been one car on the course at a time essentially, which means you don't get as many runs.
Yeah, and that's something that I'd always want to bring up about courses that cross over themselves or that have areas you do twice. If you're going to have an overlap in a course, if at all possible, do it early, and on some sites that I've designed courses on, it's actually been somewhat of an advantage because you design your overlap where it's a 28 second loop, and as soon as your first car clears that overlap area, you're safe to send that second car. If you have an overlap deep into the course, you're going to run into like we said before, event management problems and flow problems.
Now, another thing to consider on the overlaps, which I don't have an example here, is that the corner worker has to be restrained enough not to go chase the cone at the overlap point if the car hits it. And for that reason, Solo Nationals, a national tour, a championship event, the Solo Nationals themselves, they don't allow overlaps for that reason. We had one tour set up in Houston where we had that, and then in the first 20 seconds you exited it, and it was probably the fastest part of the course when you're exiting because I wanted them to get the heck out of there, right? Well, the bad part is that we're all trained to go chase a cone when it gets hit, right? Even though they went out and said, do not get that cone right there if it gets hit. Okay, I won't. Car hits the cone. He immediately runs out there, picks it up, looks up, see the car coming at him, goes, ah! So if you do those, you need to have your safety steward give the lecture every heat to make sure they understand not to put themselves in peril just for chasing a cone.
Yeah, and also reminder to drivers out there, if you have a course with an overlap, don't get cute and pull that thing where you hit a cone on your first time around and then stop because there's a down cone on the course your second time around and think that you're going to get a rerun out of it. That's not how it works. All right, so let's move on to 102 here is the next one I got.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. Okay. All right, 102. A lot of places have airport runways. They're long, skinny sites. And again, the thing I always hear is it's slalom down, slalom back. We are so bored. Well, it doesn't have to be. It's only if you limit your imagination. So you can see here, if we start at the far left, we have a sharp turn. You go through the lights, and the first thing you have is a big sweeping turn. Into another sweeping turn, do a minor offset, then some sweeping offsets, a slalom, and then a sweeping turn that goes all the way across into the crossover, and a sweeping turn around, and a sweeping turn back. At that point, you can send the second car. You have some sweeping offsets, a slalom, lane changes, and a flying finish. Now that is not slalom down and slalom back. So, let's see, let's go to 115.
All right. Oh yeah, boy, this looks like a challenge. Another sort of single lane site. There's a site like this over in the west part of Florida. Brooksville Airport is just sort of narrow enough for almost for two lanes, but kind of not really.
Yes. So this one is only 75 feet wide. This was in Austin, Texas. And they had a little parking lot next to the building, and then a little place for the grid. So to do this one, you follow the dotted line. The dotted line actually goes out on the street, and then you have to drive a dirt road back in the grid, which they weren't real excited about, but this was not slalom down and slalom back, so they were happy. So what I did is you set the car up to go up to starting at the bottom of the long strip, and it goes up to the top part and then crosses over. You'll see there's walls with holes in them. As you're going through this gate at the top, you go through the hole in the wall. All you see is the gate in front of you, because you'd have to turn your head to see the slalom cone at the top of the track. So this forces your eye down to do that big sweeping turn. A bunch of laydowns go all the way across it, back up to the top again, go down, do your slalom down, do a loop-de-loop, come back, slalom back, and then when you get back to the middle part again where all those laydown cones are, you're now facing a slalom cone right in front of you that you didn't even see on the way in because you were busy looking at the next gate. So that keeps you from going back and driving into the finish or the start. So by you can actually direct which way they're going by putting the next cone directly in their line of sight. They will drive to it. And the one you don't want them to go to, make it so they have to turn their head. So then same thing when you get through that 4-cone slalom, you get up to the wall with a hole in it. The only thing you can see is the cone you got to drive around, which forces you to go down and not go back up to the start. Then you go off to the finish and finish it off and then drive back into the grid. So let's go ahead and go to page 116.
Oh. This looks like some kind of a festival parking lot or something, or just a chopped up little nightmare almost. But
yes, it is. Yeah, well, I believe it was at a fairgrounds. These things with the squares and the triangles in them are all buildings. So there were buildings there that we had to go around. Where grid is located was actually a covered area, which was kind of nice. This is in Winnipeg, Canada, by the way.
Okay.
So what we did is we started and then took a right, and then here's where some memory is. You have to remember to go left, but I put the gate right in front of you, and then you go around it, come back into that same start area, and then because the slalom's right in front of you, go to the outside of that gate and then takes you through the rest of the course. A flying finish and then drive back into the back end of grid there. The downside to this design was that the timing vehicle does not see the course. Wherever timing is can only see about 1/3 of the course. So you have to have really good radio communication, probably a person that's assigned just to communicate with timing and nothing else, so that you're not sending cars into a spin out or a mess when someone drives through walls or something like that.
So in that case, if you have to make that call, is it better to put the timing vehicle closer to the start, closer to the finish? Where, if you've got a bad situation, how do you make the best, or what's the least bad choice to make about where to locate that timing setup?
Always put it at the start.
Okay.
Because you have to log the car in, you have to know that the car's ready, you have to know that it's started and going off, and then you trust your corner workers to tell you if there's red flags or things of that nature that they need you to delay the start.
Gotcha.
All right, so let's go to 117.
All right, looks like we're bringing it all together here.
All right, so this is a trick you can use in really limited spaces. We generally want like a minimum of 50 feet between sections, but sometimes your lot doesn't allow that. So what you do then is you just have a wall between the sections. Now what that means is you can't run multiple cars on this course. Okay, so like if you look at where the car starts, kind of a drag race start thing, goes through a slalom, goes through the loop-de-loo, and notice that the loop-de-loo is just separated by a wall that's shaped kind of like the letter J.
Yeah.
All right. That wall does not stop a car from going through it. There's nothing that will prevent it from spinning through. So that's why it's one car in the course at a time. However, it allows you to do something more than slalom down and slalom back.
Yeah, it actually becomes an element at two separate parts of the course, basically.
Right. So then you drive around that J through another wall, and then here's where memory is kind of part of it. But see all these lay down cones right before the start that tells you to go up, and then you see the gate. You come around the slalom, and again you're directing them towards where the next gate is, and then come looped around, and then the final loop around is back by that J wall, and then you finish. And once they pass that J wall, you can send the next car. So that's about all I got.
Well, that is plenty, sir. Man, thank you so much. This was, as a guy who's been around the sport, like I said, going on 30, 31, 32 years now, this is a fascinating subject to me. I've been lucky enough to design a few courses, hopefully did it well. I've ripped off a lot of your stuff as much as I could, but just going through this whole book is fascinating because it's nice both as reinforcement for stuff I kind of knew but never really could sort of put into words and definitions, and just to sort of put on paper some stuff that I hadn't really thought of before, and give some nice definitions to the language of this sport. And I love taking this deeper look into it. So Roger, yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for being. I'm looking forward. Now, are you doing East Course or West Course for Nationals this year?
I'm doing the corn course, West Course.
Okay, which is traditionally a little, I guess, what people would call it's a little bit smaller area. It's usually a little more technical course. But as the only preview you really gave us was that you guys were sort of use as few cones as possible and design a very efficient.
I meant to talk about a little earlier, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that as a course designer, you need to listen to what people say. 2 years ago, I did the corn course at Nationals, and it was perfectly legal, and you had a chance to really jump on it. But some people didn't like it, and part of what they didn't like is that it was cone intensive. For example, I took a perfectly good sweeper and made it look like a slalom. Well, the downside to that is that by making it a slalom, although you could drive it like a sweeper if you drove it perfectly, it was only a 6-foot wide lane. Yeah. And that meant for a lot of cones were hit. So I learned from that, and now the course designs tend to be a little more open than they have been in the past, and less transient tricks, as it were. So both courses at Nationals this year follow that guideline, and I think they're going to be a hoot.
And it's funny you bring up that course because I remember that course, and I specifically remember it because that was the year I was driving my Formula 500, and I remember that exact maneuver and thinking that boy, this is a really, really fun maneuver in a Formula 500. It would probably not be so fun in something, or it would be much more challenging in something wider than this. So yeah, that was, it's interesting that you bring that up. So yeah, man, we're gonna have a link to the book here in the chat. What's coming up for you before Nationals? You got I know you guys have a real active program in Houston there. How many events you guys have before Nationals coming up in Houston?
Well, in Houston, because of the weather, we run 12 months out of the year. We have an event every month, with the exception of September because of Nationals. But in October, we make up for it by holding two events. And for the Solo Nationals preparation, anybody who's registered for Solo Nationals, we have a practice event that's being held, I think, 26 or something like that. I can't remember the exact date right now. And if you're entered in the Solo Nationals, you're able to go to this practice event. So because there aren't that many people, then that means a lot of lap time. And it's on a concrete site, the Houston Police Academy, which allows us the opportunity to get set up testing and things like that. So that's how we approach it. here.
Awesome. And so obviously the book is available on the Houston SCCA website, and you guys will have the new this brand new 2017 book we're using up shortly. Now, do you ever give this whole presentation to regions if somebody wants to bring you in, or have you come do a seminar on the entire thing? Maybe they're getting their solo program back together. Is that something you would consider doing for folks?
Sure. I have the rule I have is that I don't charge to do it, but I don't pay money to do it either. So as long as you cover my travel and expenses, and I can work it with my job because my employer doesn't think I have a social life, then I can. I'd be glad to come out and give it to you. Now, one thing that's of interest too is that solo safety steward training is very closely tied to course design. If you think about it, everything in course design also has a safety element. So in Houston, what we do, in fact, we're doing it this Sunday, we hold a safety steward course design seminar. And then we have people that are coming to get their safety steward license, listening to the course design thing. They ask questions that have to do with safety stuff. And the people that are wanting to do about the course design are asking course design questions. It really brings a total different spectrum to it. And it helps the safety stewards get a much more round training. And at the end, they have the standard safety steward test and lecture that's about a half hour long.
Awesome. Well, Roger, I will see you in Lincoln in just a little over, actually a little less than a month now. I'll be out there for the whole thing. Looking forward to your West course. As always, thanks so much for being with us tonight. I know we kept you for a little longer than we said, but this was all fascinating stuff. We had in fact, we had some of your fans from Houston on the chat saying how much they enjoyed driving your courses and how spoiled they feel to be able to drive your stuff as their home courses. So yeah, thanks for all the hard work, man. And I will be seeing you in just a few weeks.
I look forward to it.
Thanks, man. Have a good night. We'll talk to you soon. Oh, Lordy, that was fun. That I hope everybody who was watching dug that as much as I did, because that was something you're not really going to get anywhere else. We've got links in the Facebook chat, and we'll put them in the YouTube video listing for a link to the Houston SCCA website where this entire 142-page book is. But if you are involved in the solo program in your area or the autocross program for your independent club, this is invaluable information. Let us wrap things up with so actually no, Greg Anthony, this is Texas Roger, not Ohio Roger. Both very, very famous gentlemen in the solo community. But this was Texas Roger we were talking to today. Let me tell you guys a little bit about autobooks-aerobooks.com. Folks, if you have a bookshelf anywhere in your house and you want car books to be on that bookshelf, check out autobooks-aerobooks.com. They are a good old-fashioned brick-and-mortar bookstore. They also have an immense online catalog of stuff they will ship right to your house, and you can pick it up and read it, and it doesn't matter if the power goes out, you can still read that book and get the information that is inside that book. We are very proud to have an old school bookstore bridging the gap to the future and supporting a new school digital media operation. We're huge fans of Autobooks Aerobooks. Most of the stuff on my bookshelf all comes from Autobooks Aerobooks. So check them out, autobooks-aerobooks.com. Also, if you're ever in Southern California, go by their store on a Saturday. There's going to be somebody there signing books and doing a panel discussion. Jay Leno is probably going to be hanging out there. It is not just a bookstore, but it's sort of a hub of the Southern California automotive community. So they've got great schedules on their website for different cruise-ins and cars and coffee days. So please check them out, autobooks-aerobooks.com. Also, check out our friends at CRC. This is my latest discovery from CRC. I feel bad calling it a discovery because everybody else probably knew about this before. But display cleaner, this stuff, if you've got LCD monitors, LCD TVs, LED screens, any modern even your phone or your iPad, you know how tricky they are to clean. It's almost impossible to clean them with conventional cleaners and not get water spots or streaks, whatever. This stuff is amazing. You spray it on like a microfiber cloth, wipe off your I wiped off all the monitors in the office today, and I'm not like, there's no dust, there's no barbecue sauce, or the usual stuff that gets all over my monitors. So this was a recent discovery I made. But it just kind of shows you how deep and how wide the CRC lineup is. So folks, if you are reaching for automotive chemicals, if you're at Walmart, if you're at O'Reilly, if you're at Pep Boys, you're reaching for a brake cleaner, and you reach for CRC stuff, you know that you're not only getting a fantastic product, but you are getting a product from a company that supports the world that you and I enjoy. This is a company that, here, I'll even throw on the old CRC hat to cap things off here. You're getting a product from a company that supports amateur and professional motorsports at every level: autocross, drag racing, road racing, off-road. They are motorsports-oriented people, and we are proud to have them on board the show. And even the hat. I'm not a classically handsome man, but I put the hat on. It kind of improves the overall package, I think. Just having that CRC logo in the frame, it makes things a little better. So yeah, please check them out. Here, we'll throw the Slayer hat on for the rest of the show. See. All right, so that's it. Thanks very much to Roger Johnson. If you missed any portion of this broadcast, in about 3 hours, maybe less, it will be archived on our YouTube page. As soon as we stop the broadcast, YouTube will process the video. A couple hours, it'll be up on YouTube, and it'll be there forever. So if you want to share this with your friends in the autocross community, with other folks that are designing courses, you can certainly do that. It'll be up in just a few hours, and we'll throw a link to it up on our message board. Speaking of our message board, if you go to grassrootsmotorsports.com, you will have access to one of the finest automotive message boards anywhere on the internet. Actually, here's my favorite quote from our message board recently. We were actually talking about CRC products, and somebody mentioned that if CRC is selling snake oil, they make it out of magic snakes. And I could not agree more, because obviously we loved this stuff long before they sponsored us. So yeah, check out our forum at grassrootsmotorsports.com. If you'd like to subscribe to our print magazine, go to grassrootsmotorsports.com/live deal. We'll throw a link up to that in the chat on both areas as well. Next, cap things off. Yeah, David just pointed out that I unintentionally made a pun, which doesn't make it any funnier. Next week, what is going on? Oh, great shows coming up. Let's plug a couple of the shows coming up soon. Next week, we are going to have, right here in the studio, out in the shop there, one of our 2017 challenge cars, the Justang. If that name sounds familiar to you, this is a Subaru Justy that has been fitted on top of a Cobra Mustang, and goes really, really, really fast. And they're going to be right here in the shop next week, showing you how they built that for under $2,017. Some great guys from Orlando that come out to our 2017 challenge every year, and they compete to win with that thing. Is it an impressive machine? So they're going to be right here in the studio next week. Week after that, we've got Lee Grimes from Coney Shocks talking shock tech with everybody. So you definitely want to join in for that. Lots of great setup tips, lots of great tech information for that. All right, yeah, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. We're going to go look, scroll down here and see if there are any questions we missed. Yeah, so Jim says he subscribes to GRM and sprays his lousy old cars with CRC brake and MAF cleaner on the regular. Thanks for making race content for regular schmucks. Yeah, man, look, we are not making anything that we do not want to consume ourselves. We are our readers, we are our viewers. We just have, my mom bought me a camera, and that's really the only difference between us and you, is that we're sharing the stuff we're doing with the rest of everybody. We're all part of one big community here. We love being part of this community. It's great getting to talk to guys like Roger, guys that make a sport I love more fun to participate in. and it is a blast. So that is it for tonight, folks. For August 2nd, we will be at Solo Nationals in just a little under a month. If you're out there, please join us on the Monday evening preceding Solo Nationals for the Grassroots Motorsports Welcome Party featuring talent and tacos. That's right, we got a stage, we got essentially an open mic. This is going to be the 4th or 5th year that I've hosted the talent portion of the Solo Nationals. It is a rapidly escalating showcase of amazing talent, and I've talked to some folks already this year that are going to be a part of it. The winner, chosen by essentially whoever impresses us the most, gets a set of BF Goodrich tires for their trouble. Everybody gets the respect and admiration of their peers, and it's a great night. It really is a fun, very sort of bohemian communal night of fan-produced entertainment. It's one of the most it's one of the most fun open mics you'll ever go to. It really is. So if you're out there, please check that out. All right, folks. Thank you for one last look at the messages here. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for all the shares. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything on YouTube. You'll get notifications about all our new videos. We got live shows every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you're a YouTube subscriber, you'll get information about those, and you'll get information when those shows are archived and go up. So we love seeing those YouTube subscriber numbers come in. Helps us communicate with you guys better and helps us get you information about when this stuff is happening. It's time for me to sign off. I have talked enough. Folks, I am JG Pasterjack. Thank you very much for watching Grassroots Motorsports Live, presented by CRC Industries. We will see you again next Wednesday evening. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.